Did you know, in the Star Wars Rebels Season 4 premiere, Heroes of Mandalore, Ezra learning to use his jetpack was inspired by Cliff Seckard doing the same thing in the 1991 movie The Rocketeer. The Rocketeer was directed by Joe Johnston, who was the ILM artist most responsible for designing Boba Fett and his jetpack for The Empire Strikes Back. Andrew Kashino voices Imperial Mandalorian Captain Hark. Kashino also voiced the original Saw Gerrera when he was introduced in the Clone Wars Onderon arc. Tobias Menzies, who voices Tiber Saxon, is the third member of HBO's Rome cast to voice a Mandalorian leader, the other two being Kevin McKidd as Finn Rau and Ray Stevenson as Gar Saxon. The chase to save Sabine's father from inside a trooper transport was inspired by two scenes from Indiana Jones: the truck chase in Raiders of the Lost Ark and the tank chase in The Last Crusade. This episode marks the return of Katie Sackhoff to her role of Bo-Katan Kryze, first seen in the Clone Wars. Bo-Katan's model has been redesigned to match the Star Wars Rebels art style and advance the character's age appropriately. The design for Sundari, the Mandalorian capital, comes from George Lucas's suggestion of using a trackball mouse as a starting point during the city's development for its appearances in the Clone Wars. The weapon Sabine designed is nicknamed the Duchess, which is a reference to Satine Kryze. Given her pacifist ideals, it's an ironic usage of the name, similar to the way a weapon in our world may be called the Peacemaker. Heroes of Mandalore Part 1 was first publicly shown at Star Wars Celebration Orlando on April 15, 2017, 6 months before its television debut. Bonus fun fact, I was in that room. In an earlier draft of the story, Sabine would knight her Mandalorian soldiers with the Darksaber, creating scorch marks on their armor. This episode marks the first time Mandalorian armor is referred to as Beskar on screen. That term was introduced in the Star Wars Legends Republic Commando novels by Karen Traviss, giving a name to the concept of Mandalorian iron, which itself was first introduced in the Tales of the Jedi comics by Tom Veitch. The idea that Sabine had developed weapons for the Empire goes all the way back to her original character conception, as her bio in the earliest story Bible describes Sabine's work was directly responsible for a terrible event perpetrated by the Empire. The details were left undefined until this story arc. Earlier drafts of the story had Bo-Katan more eager to use the weapon against the Empire, although she would still choose to destroy it. As the story evolved, the conflict was moved to Sabine, and Bo-Katan became the voice of reason. This episode expands the number of known Mandalorian clans and houses, and diversifies their look by showcasing different ancestral roots than the Kryze and Vizsla families featured so heavily in the Clone Wars. Moving on to In the Name of the Rebellion, Saw Gerrera, again played by Forrest Whitaker, more closely resembles his final look in Rogue One, a design evolution from his earlier Season 3 appearance. He refers to the rebellion by its formal name, the Alliance to Restore the Republic. This episode finally connects the crew of the Ghost with the Rebel Alliance seen in A New Hope and Rogue One. It's the series debut of the Massassi-based designs that date back to the original Star Wars film. Mon Mothma's fiery question to Saw, "What will we become?" echoes a line from an earlier edit of Rogue One where Saw asks Jyn the same question. The line can be heard in the trailer for the film. This episode marks the series debut of the U-Wing from Rogue One, now sporting the black and white partisan markings that can be seen on their X-Wings on Jedha. The rapidly descending career of Commander Brom Titus comes to a conclusion in this episode. He started off as an admiral in Season 2. In earlier versions of the script, Saw's pilot was going to be a new Klatooinian character named Lork. To better connect with Rogue One, the pilot was changed to Edrio Two-Tubes, with David Accord again providing his voice. The astromech that projects Saw's hologram, R4C2, was originally going to be a rival of Chopper's, but that thread in the story was cut. Among the Imperial prisoners is a Theelin male, which is the first time a male from that species has appeared on screen. Female Theelins include Ristal Sant from Return of the Jedi, Latz Razzie from the Clone Wars, and Guti Terez from Star Wars Rebels. The final draft of the script has the civilian spaceport named as Phayos Station, but in earlier drafts it was called Teos Station. That change came too late to alter the model, so Teos is still printed in Aurebesh on its surface. The story points Saw towards Jedha, where we catch up with him in the book Guardians of the Whills. In that book, Saw still has both his legs, meaning those injuries occur very close to the events of Rogue One. The Death Trooper commander DT-F-16 is voiced by Jennifer Hale, who also provided the voice for Bastila Shan in Knights of the Old Republic and Aayla Secura in the Clone Wars. The Imperial captain of the cargo ship, unnamed in the episode, was Captain Wells in earlier drafts of the script. The episode The Occupation sees the return of the puffer pigs from Season 1. A baby pig was designed but not used in the final episode. The design of Lothal was meant to emphasize the ecological mismanagement of the planet, transforming the grasslands into something similar to the Dust Bowl era in the United States. The dust and smoke was supposed to make it unclear whether Lothal scenes took place during the day or night. The back-to-back plots of the Mandalorian and Saw Gerrera arcs meant Sabine didn't have time to update her look, but now her hair has changed color for the rest of the season. Old Joe's is now operated by Baron Valen Rudor, an Imperial pilot that was given parade honors in the Season 1 episode Empire Day. The TX-225 assault tank developed for Rogue One makes an appearance in this episode, although it's the hovering design and not the treaded version seen in the movie. The treaded version was a late design change in Rogue One, and the animation design was locked in July of 2016. Jai Kell calls Ezra Oleg, which was the name of the loyal Imperial cadet who nearly spoiled Ezra's undercover mission in the Season 1 episode Breaking Ranks. In Flight of the Defender, the TIE Defender receives an updated model and color scheme. The rear engine has been reshaped, a hatch containing the hyperdrive unit has been added, and the Kenner-inspired pop-off wings are now included. The Lothwolves make their first appearance in this episode, but references to their existence on Lothal can be seen in the Jedi Temple Kanan and Ezra visit in Seasons 1 and 2. The Lothcat sounds are recordings of sound designer Dave Accord's cat, Tex. His other cat, Porkchop, provided the purr that was the source of Kylo Ren's Force Rumble sound effect in The Force Awakens. In this episode, Hera and Kanan are based out of Ezra's communication tower where the series began. The probe droids spotted in the distance on the airfield were originally intended to be target drones for TIE Defender test runs so that the Rebels would see its capabilities in action. In many ways, this episode is an evolution of the We Stole a TIE Fighter story from Season 1's Fight or Flight episode, but now with the stakes and dangers raised exponentially. In the episode Kindred, we meet Grand Admiral Thrawn's personal assassin, Rook. The character first appeared in the 1991 Star Wars novel Heir to the Empire by Timothy Zahn, the same book that introduced Thrawn. Rook's visual depiction has varied greatly over the decades, and this episode cements his appearance in canon content. Zahn's first pitch for Rook was that his species would be called the Sith to explain Darth Vader's title as Dark Lord of the Sith. This was before it was established that the Sith were a dark side sect opposed to the Jedi. Lucasfilm rejected the idea, so Zahn invented the Noghri species. This episode marks the debut of Governor Pryce in combat armor following the previous rollout of Tarkin and Thrawn in similar gear, all based on General Veer's look from The Empire Strikes Back. The spiritual secrets locked within Lothal, which are hinted at in this episode by the mysterious abilities of the Lothwolves, builds upon a warning Minister Tua spoke about just before her death at the start of Season 2. Working titles for the episode Crawler Commanders included Direct Impact, Crawler Assault, and Crawler Commandeers. The design for the Ore Crawler is based on the World Devastators, massive flying automated factories from the 1991 Legends comic series Dark Empire written by Tom Veitch. The TIE Defender Elite technical specifications read in Arabesh. Technical readouts contained in this transmission have been rated top secret by Imperial Command, eyes only. Captain Seevor is listening to the same power ballad rock that Zeb favors back in the Season 2 episode The Mystery of Chopper Base. The burly guild slave master that Zeb fights is named Proach as a nod to Pat Roach, the actor who played many of Indiana Jones's opponents throughout the Indy films. Grand Admiral Thrawn issues Protocol 13, which is the evacuation of personnel from an Imperial base or facility, and is what the Empire uses to move its forces out of Jeddah prior to the Death Star's test firing. Mart Matten returns in the episode Rebel Assault, this time as Phoenix 2. He has the name Sammy written in Arabesh on his helmet. This episode marks the series debut of the X-Wing Starfighters. They have green markings not seen in Rogue One or A New Hope, and with good reason considering their fates in this episode. Volt Scaris has his horned logo on the cockpit of his TIE Defender Elite. The alien pilot is a Lutrillian, a design first developed for the Cantina in A New Hope. The character is jokingly called Second Derry. According to the holographic map designed but not seen in this episode, there are 9 gunnery stations of 4 turbolaser towers, each lining the outer perimeter of Lothal's capital city. The episode Jedi Knight was originally titled Ascension Part 1. Governor Pryce's datapad calls the torture device holding Hera an information extraction apparatus. Pryce keeps hitting the button labeled Engage. The device itself is a modified and redressed version of the interrogation rack used on Kanan back in Season 1. Lothbats were first mentioned in the Star Wars Rebels book Battle to the End. They were first shown on screen in the episode Flight of the Defender. The Lothbats have begun to scavenge the cities because of the ecological destruction caused by the Empire. In a way, Imperial disruption of the planet has opened a door for the Rebels. Tarkin's mention of Krennic and Project Stardust is of course a reference to the Death Star as it nears completion. Tarkin's skepticism is part of his political mind. He only claims responsibility for the Death Star once he knows it works. The episode Doom was originally titled Ascension Part 2. In early drafts of the script, Zeb would say, "I have had enough of you," as he punched Rook, which was a nod to Captain Kirk's lines as he beat a Klingon opponent in Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. The scene where Rook spots Zeb and stares back at him through his binoculars is meant to be a nod to Alfred Hitchcock's Rear Window. This episode marks the first appearance of Doom, the largest of the Lothwolves. His name and forehead markings match Kanan's true last name and shoulder armor marking. The effect of Rook's invisibility field is similar to the holographic disguise matrix seen in Season 4 of Star Wars The Clone Wars, suggesting they may be related technologies. When exploring the connection between the Lothwolves and the Lothcats in the episode Wolves and a Door, the film Princess Mononoke was cited as a source of inspiration. The voices heard in the Hyper-Tunnel journey include clips from the episodes Spark of Rebellion, Path of the Jedi, Vision of Hope, Fire Across the Galaxy, and Siege of Lothal. The recording of Thrawn used to distract biker scouts is from the Season 3 finale, 0 Hour. New designs for the episode include the Mining Guild excavation driller, Sabine in Scout Trooper disguise, Minister Varys Hyden, and the Emperor. Malcolm McDowell provided the voice for Hyden, and Ian McDiarmid reprised his role as Emperor Palpatine. In earlier versions of the story, Hyden was going to be Vinay, Darth Vader's attendant in Rogue One. Hyden's evolving characterization led to the decision to separate them into individual characters. PA Chatter advises there is a safety hazard zone in standing 25 meters from the temple. Special teams are exempt and look out for static charge. It's a nod to a similar announcement made during the arrival of the mothership in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. In a world between worlds, Ezra can hear the voices of Yoda, Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, Ahsoka, Kanan, Jyn Erso, Kylo Ren, Maz Kanata, Rey, and more. In Season 2 of Star Wars Rebels, Minister Tua claimed the Emperor had a very special interest on Lothal. This episode finally tells us what that interest is. The original title for A Fool's Hope was Ezra's Gambit. The final episode title is a reference to a quote from Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. The clones on Selos have gotten, quote, a bigger boat since Season 2. They replaced their AT-TE with their captured AT-AT Walker. Among the support ships blockading Lothal are designs taken from the Imperial dreadnoughts that played a major role in the Thrawn trilogy of books. The show creators produced an alternate cut of the vicious Lothwolf attack in which the screams of the stormtroopers were replaced with the sound of squeaky chew toys. The appearance of the wolves behind Ezra is similar to the Fernok rising behind him in Season 1, but this time Ezra is in far better control of his emotions and focus. An earlier draft of the episode's script included a scene collecting the villains plotting the Empire's future, which would have included director Krennic. He was designed but never built, as the scene was cut early on in development. Hera flips the Ghost into a gunship, which is something we've seen the Millennium Falcon do in the trailer for Solo: A Star Wars Story. According to Lucasfilm, both maneuvers were developed independently and are a coincidence. The working title for the series finale was The Light of Lothal. Lothal's planetary shield generator has banks of capacitors that share a design with a device briefly seen in the indoor bunker in Return of the Jedi. The original model for the movie was actually made from stacks of painted drinking cups. As the Purrgil attack his fleet, Thrawn contacts Captain Pellaeon. Gilad Pellaeon was the right-hand man of Grand Admiral Thrawn in Star Wars Legends, who went on to become a Grand Admiral himself. The coda to the episode was kept under wraps from all but the crew directly working on it until the last possible moment before airing. Hera and Kanan's son Jacen is likely named after the Star Wars Legends character Jacen Solo. At any rate, both names are spelled the same. The older Sabine has a Purrgil painted on her left shoulder and the official emblem of the Rebel Alliance on her right. In the biggest twist of all, it was finally revealed during the credits that Dave Filoni provided the voice of Chopper for the entirety of the show's run. And that brings us to the end of all of our Easter eggs, references, and hidden details in the final season of Star Wars Rebels. Did you catch anything I missed? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, check out the other Did You Know videos I made for the other seasons of the show, as well as the Clone Wars. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out my Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.